You're listening to the I Love You Keep Going podcast with George Haas. For more information, please visit our website at www.mettagroup.org. That's www.mettagroup.org.
So welcome everybody. This is I Love You Keep Going. It's May 19th, 2022. It's 7:36 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And actually, we've been talking about mentalizing a lot lately, and I thought we would break from that and talk about finding peace, or maybe finding equanimity would be better. In that frame, finding equanimity means coming out of craving, aversion, and unconsciousness, which can be useful. Sometimes in the Theravada world, the idea of coming out of suffering is also coming out of the self-experience. And so that cessation experience, or the Nirodha experience. But I find that insufficiently practical for getting along day to day and being engaged in things. And most of the people, Jake, you're the exception here, but are householders, and how do we find peace or balance in our everyday lives, given the vicissitudes and given this fundamental understanding that we're born, we grow old, we get sick, we die, and that the people near us also do that, and that sometimes there's loss, either through estrangement or death. I talk a lot about this idea of fully engaged and in perfect balance. But when you look at the biology of human beings, that is more metaphorical in a way. We're biochemical, we're electrical. Every sensing experience that we take in, we create through a change in that homeostatic balance of chemicals that animate our lives. And so each sensing experience takes us out of that perfect balance into the experience, and as it falls away, we swing back. So it's this movement which creates, I think, quite a liveliness about being alive. And we can track that sense of, am I balancing, or am I getting knocked out of balance? It happens at this micro level and also at a macro level. We have a sense of inhabiting conceptual reality, the way that we make it. It's a representation of what things mean to us. Things can mean different things to us at different times, in different conditions. But there's also the micro experience of it, the sensing experience. Are we clinging to a pleasant sensing experience? Are we aversive to an unpleasant sensing experience? Are we bored by the ordinariness of so much that happens, that we disengage from it or distract from it? So I tend to think of equanimity as this very lively state of engagement, rather than a detached and removed state. In the Brahma Viharas in Upekkha, the near enemy of equanimity is detachment, so a kind of shutting down, a disengagement. Have you ever seen those videos of people surfing giant waves, like, I don't know, is it 60 foot waves that they're surfing? But there's like this giant wave, and there's like a little guy, it's usually guys on a surfboard stuck in the middle of the wave, just sticking out of this ball of moving water. But when you notice them, they're constantly moving, constantly adjusting, a little bit back, a little bit forward, this way, that way. Constantly keeping that sense of balance in the face of this enormity. It's kind of what I liken it to. How do you track that well enough that you can do that? So there's the object that can be sensed, the capacity to sense it. When they meet, there's contact, consciousness of that sensing experience arises. It's evaluated for processing speed. I like to say urgent, or doesn't matter, or pleasant if there's time. Then it's compared to the perceptual database, and then any meaning that we might have in the perceptual database that's close enough to the unfixated sensing experience attaches to that, and then we create conceptual reality which unfolds consciously. All that process before that happened unconsciously. Isn't that we don't know it, we just don't know it in that narrow bandwidth of consciousness where we experience conceptual reality. But in the moments of conceptual reality where it unfolds, can we reverse engineer it to understand how we've done that, what we've made it out of? Do you know that you've made conceptual reality based on the conditions of the present moment and conditioning, and that they've come together to form this experience? And can you trace in the present moment display the roots of the and where those meanings came from? And if you create a conceptual reality that's unpleasant, can you abandon it and then just in the next moment recreate it? That would be a way to hold on to equanimity. This version is difficult, and so in the next moment, as I recreate conceptual reality, I'll create it differently. Or do you lose your balance and suddenly think that this is actually how it is, and then begin to respond from that rigid place of this is how it is, this is what's happening, moment by moment. You have to be quick, right? So you have to be able to develop the capacity to do this, to see it, and then to be able to respond in a fluid way. The Pali word that I quite like, and you'll hear me talk about it, is Tajapanati, which means, Taja means to check, and Panati is conceptual reality. So constantly checking that the conceptual reality that you create out of ultimate reality is a good match. I always like to say, have you ever gotten it wrong in terms of what's actually happening? That is to say, what the sensing and raw data would suggest is happening and what you make it into. And how painful can it be when you make conceptual reality in a way that is difficult when you reflect back on it. I know with myself, sometimes I'll get an email which that'll have a big emotional charge to it, and I'll just close it and wait for the emotional charge to come and go, so that I can then look at the email again to see how far off my initial read of the email is. Sometimes it's hilariously off. Sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's, if there's a big emotional charge that's so distorting, I can't really take in the content. So, and then in suggesting this as peace, as you see these processes come and go, and you get used to the way that they happen. If you step out of this belief in a solid, continuous, ongoing, unchanging experience of self, and see that also as an activity that comes and goes and is quite changeable based on activities, then in this flow of arisings and passings at the macro level and at the micro level, you can inhabit this place of balance. So you, in a moment, read an email, it creates a huge emotional response. You have a very distorted understanding of what's happening, and then you attend to that wave of emotional experience and come back into the experience of the present moment and re-engage the email, and there's no recrimination or harshness in the self that reacted into the self now back in balance, that's able to hold it, because the understanding that these are the ordinary nature of the human experience. Is that making sense? So then, how do you explore that so that you can see these ordinary processes of creating moment by moment and then being in peace with it? The perceptual database, the database in which we go to look for the meaningfulness of things, is conditioned, and we have that whole conditioning there, and we keep going to it to make our understanding of the present moment. And so each present moment that we make is informed by that history, that our conditioned responses. So it can seem quite familiar, quite real. And yet we know that if we put in different entries into the database, the way that we create conceptual reality changes. And it isn't the mechanism of making it that's different. The mechanism really stays the same. It's just because there's different information in the database where we have the capacity to make the present moment conceptual reality differently than we would. And even the experience of it is the same. This comes from doing a lot of ideal parent figure work myself, and also with other people, seeing that when you stack the database with positive experiences, then we just begin to make conceptual reality in a much more positive way, even though the experience of making it is the same. Am I conveying that in a way that's understandable? So if you change the database, the way that you make yourself and the world changes, which is one of the reasons why a focus on intentional positivity can help create balance. If you grew up in harsh conditions and you have a lot of negative states associated with the working model of self and the working model of the world, you can intentionally infuse both the working model of self and the working model of the world with positive states, so that in the next moment, because the balance between negative and positive states has changed, you have a tendency to create a different experience of conceptual reality. Is that all making sense so far? So then part of it is the clarity of what the sense strands are that we're using to weave this experience of a conceptual reality. Part of it is tolerating the intensities of those sense streams. If you don't have clarity between the experience of the intensity and what you make the sensing data into, If the sensing intensity is unpleasant, it can distort the way that you create conceptual reality. So there's a lot of insight work into teasing apart the whole process in which this happens, and then noticing the balances between positive and negative states, and if need be, reinforcing the positive states. These systems are largely separate, so even if you do reduce the intensity of the negative states, you still have to intentionally increase the positive state. So it's a balance here, reducing the negative states and then increasing the positive states. So doing this mainly in practice, I like to use an intensity equanimity technique mainly for the working with sense intensity. The one that I like is tracking whether the intensity is increasing, decreasing, has stayed the same, or has vanished. It's just as a complete set. First, developing sensory clarity so that you can pull apart the main sense strands, touching, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and then the activity of mind. Mind is what you select out of the full range of experiences. So you'll notice as you track these things that you don't actually do a uniform survey of the whole environment that you're in. You actually just collect things that you have a preference for. And then you take the things that you've collected and you create from that curated, preferred collection the experience of the present moment. So it's already based on that sense of preference. So it can be useful to explore what it is that your attention is drawn to, and then what the preference for those types of experiences is over other experiences. All of this is conditioned. And then simply coming into that space, which I'm sure we're mostly familiar with, which is just allowing the arising and passing and the attention to be drawn, and at the same time monitoring it all so that you can track it well. If you investigate the nature of the emotional regulation system, it's really mostly done through thinking, and so that you have these strategies that you use, that you think about, that create emotional experiences which help balance the reaction to the present moment. So there's an evaluation that needs to happen there. Are you using beneficial strategies or afflictive strategies? If you're using afflictive strategies, can you suppress them and replace them with beneficial strategies? The need to regulate is constant, and if you're not good at it, what you may notice is either you're reducing stimuli so that you don't have to experience the intensities that are hard to manage, which can often lead to a restriction in exploration, which restricts meaning. Or you can use some activity that dulls the experience of the present moment, something that's distracting. So at peace in the experience of the present moment in whatever conditions are happening, or equanimous in that place. Sometimes we call that no preference. So what do you think? Shall we just do a long practice period today? That's what I was thinking. What I'd like to do is start with just a little bit of concentration practice to settle, and then to do a basic see, hear, feel technique. And then to add to that, and then to switch from that to noting intensity instead of sensory clarity. Trying to think of how to do this. How'd that go? I feel quite peaceful. So let's see. We have some level ones coming up and some level two coming up. If you're interested in the attachment work, take a look at it. It's on the website. The October retreat is filling up, so if that's something interesting to you, take a look at that. It's also on the website. I'm going to be away from June 8th until June. See what's the date on that. So I'll be away June 8th, which means we'll have 2 more of these classes, I think, and then there'll be a 3-week hiatus, just to give you a heads up on that. Thank you for coming. I offer the teaching freely, but I do hope that you'll consider making a donation. There's a link on the website for that. It does help support me and also the work that Mettagroup does. Appreciate your practice. See you soon. Bye.